You know how the US is like a melting pot of everything. Well, that includes crime too. And guess what? Sometimes, even our men and women in uniform find themselves on the wrong side of the law. So, who's the Sherlock Holmes for these military whodunits? Let's set the stage with a juicy scenario. Picture this. 3 army buddies decide to paint the town red. They head to Club Tonius in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky. Little do they know, it's Navy night, and the place is swarming with sailors who've had a few too many. Tensions rise, words are exchanged, and before you know it, fists are flying. In the midst of this chaos, a bystander gets fatally injured. Everyone scatters before the local police show up. Now, who's gonna crack this case wide open? You might be thinking, oh, the military police got this. Or maybe, the local cops will handle it. Or even, this sounds like a job for the FBI. But hold your horses. The real answer is more intriguing. None of these usual suspects are gonna take the lead. Enter the specialized federal law enforcement agencies that operate in this unique twilight zone between civilian and military jurisdictions. These are the guys and gals who deal exclusively with the 6 branches of the US military. And one of these agencies would likely be the ones rolling up their sleeves to get to the bottom of our hypothetical bar brawl gone wrong. So who are these agencies? Well, you've got the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, or NCIS, if you're into acronyms. Then there's the Army's own Criminal Investigation Division, known as Army CID. Don't forget the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, or AFOC for short. The Coast Guard isn't left out. They have their Investigative Service, CGIS. And let's not overlook the Marine Corps Criminal Investigation Division, or Marine CID for those keeping score. These agencies are like the special forces of law enforcement. They've got agents with the power to arrest, and these agents can be either civilians or active-duty military. They're the ones who step in when a case has any ties to the Department of Defense. And trust me, they've got their work cut out for them. Now, you might be wondering, why the heck do we even need these specialized agencies? Isn't the regular police force enough? Bah, my friend, that's where the plot thickens. You see, these agencies are the bridge between 2 worlds, the military and civilian law enforcement. They're the ones who can navigate the murky waters of jurisdiction, protocol, and, let's face it, bureaucracy, to make sure justice is served hot and fresh. Let's dig a bit deeper into what sets these agencies apart, shall we? First up, NCIS. If you're a fan of TV dramas, you probably think you know all about it. But the real NCIS is even cooler. They're the go-to guys for anything related to the Navy and Marine Corps. We're talking espionage, terrorism, and even cybercrime. These agents are trained to handle cases that could be a matter of national security. So yeah, they're a big deal. Next in line, Army CID. These are the detectives of the Army, the ones who get called in for the serious stuff like homicide, sexual assault, and fraud. They're not just military police. They're an elite unit trained in criminal investigations. And get this, they often work in plain clothes, so you might not even know they're around until they've solved the case. Now, let's talk about AFOC, the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. These folks are like the James Bonds of the Air Force. They handle a wide range of issues including counterintelligence, and they often work undercover. They're the ones you call when you've got a case that's too hot for the regular channels. Don't forget the Coast Guard Investigative Service, or CGIS. They may be the smallest of the bunch, but don't underestimate them. They handle everything from drug trafficking to immigration issues and even environmental crimes. They're the Swiss Army knife of military law enforcement. Last, but not least, Marine CID. These guys focus on crimes within the Marine Corps, and they're as tough as they come. They're trained to handle everything from theft to murder, and they do it with the kind of discipline you'd expect from the Marines. Whether it's a bar brawl in Kentucky or a cyber attack on a naval base, these agencies are on it. They've got the skills, the training, and the jurisdiction to get the job done. And they do it all while navigating the complex landscape of military and civilian law. It's not an easy job, but someone's got to do it. And these folks are the best of the best. These agencies aren't just a bunch of badges and uniforms. They're a complex web of special agents, jurisdictions, and international reach. So let's dig into the nitty-gritty, shall we? First off, you've got to understand that these agencies have the power vested in them by Congress. That's right, they're not just winging it. They've got the full backing of the U.S. federal government. So if someone decides to rob a house on a military base, guess who's knocking on their door? Or let's say a civilian commits a crime on a military installation. Yep, these agencies have got that covered too. Now, here's where it gets interesting. These special agents aren't just military personnel. They can be civilians too. And depending on the agency, they could be enlisted, warrant officers, or even commissioned officers. That's a whole lot of diversity in the ranks. And get this, they can even arrest civilians outside a military base under certain circumstances. That's a level of authority that even the standard military police don't have, thanks to something called the Pos Comitatus Act. In layman's terms, this act restricts the military from acting as law enforcement within the U.S., but these special agents, they've got a bit more leeway. And speaking of leeway, these agents aren't just confined to U.S. soil. Oh no, they're globetrotters. With U.S. military bases scattered across the world, these agents could find themselves investigating crimes anywhere from Germany to Japan. Heck, they could even end up in combat zones. That's right, they're not just desk jockeys. They're action heroes in their own right. Now, let's zoom in on NCIS, the celebrity of military law enforcement agencies, thanks to Hollywood. But the real NCIS is even more fascinating. They've got around 2,000 personnel, and here's the kicker. About half of them are special agents, and all of them are civilians. That's right, no military ranks here. They're the ones responsible for investigating major crimes within the Department of the Navy, which includes the Marine Corps. So, whether it's a high-stakes espionage case or a complex fraud scheme, NCIS is on it like white on rice. But don't think for a second that these agencies are all cut from the same cloth. Each has its own unique flavor, its own set of responsibilities, and its own way of doing things. And that's what makes them so darn effective. They're specialized units designed to handle the unique challenges that come with their respective military branches. So, whether it's NCIS diving into naval mysteries, Army CID cracking down on internal crimes, or AFOC thwarting espionage attempts, these agencies are the real deal. They're the ones who ensure that justice isn't just a word, but a lived reality, both at home and abroad. And trust me, in a world as complex as ours, that's no small feat. Take the Army's Criminal Investigation Division, or CID. These guys are like the Sherlock Holmes of the Army, with nearly 3,000 personnel scattered across 124 locations worldwide. They're the ones you call for the big stuff, felonies, war crimes, terrorism, you name it. And unlike NCIS, which is all civilian, CID is a mix. You've got civilian agents, enlisted soldiers, and warrant officers. But here's the twist. They're currently undergoing a restructuring. The plan is to make CID more like NCIS, focusing on civilian special agents. Why? Well, it's all part of recommendations from the Fort Hood Independent Review. So, if you're thinking of joining, now's a pretty interesting time. But let's not forget about the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, or OSI. These are the folks responsible for keeping the skies, and now space, safe and secure. Yep, with the newly formed Space Force under their wing. OSI is looking after both the Air Force and Space Force. And while they're not launching investigations in zero gravity yet, they've got their hands full right here on Earth. From espionage and terrorism to computer hacking and drug trafficking, OSI agents are the ones putting out the fires. And speaking of training, whether you're aiming for CID or OSI, you'll find yourself at FLETC in Glencoe, Georgia. That's the Federal Law Enforcement Training Centers. For those not in the know, here you'll go through a rigorous training program designed to turn you into a top-notch investigator. For CID, that includes a 2-month agency-specific course to get you up to speed on all things Army. Now, you might be wondering, what makes these agencies so special compared to other federal law enforcement? Well, for starters, they operate both domestically and internationally. They're not just confined to U.S. soil. These agents could be conducting investigations in combat zones or on foreign military bases. That's a level of flexibility and reach that most federal agencies just don't have. And let's not forget, these agencies are constantly evolving. Take Army CID's current restructuring or OSI's expanding responsibilities with the inclusion of the Space Force. These changes reflect the dynamic nature of military law enforcement, always adapting to new challenges and scenarios. So, whether it's NCIS agents deploying on naval ships, CID agents navigating the complexities of the Army, or OSI agents tackling air and space-related crimes, these agencies are the backbone of military justice. They're the ones making sure that when the stakes are high, justice is never compromised. And in a world as unpredictable as ours, that's something we can all take comfort in.